Okay. Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Briefing, where today we're talking about overcoming injustice with creativity. I'm very honored to be joined by my super connector and best friend, Dot Lung, as well as Stanley Vaganov. Am I pronouncing it correctly, Stanley?
Yes. Yep.
So it's so good to be with the two of you. So I'm going to just say this. I am so excited that we decided to pick this topic for today. That we, you probably saw that I did a podcast with an agency owner based in Ukraine. I've been interacting with a lot of people on social media about what's going on there and how we can help people in that part of the world. And Dot, you started turning me on to some interesting things that you were involved in. Can you give me the backstory of how this conversation today came about?
Yeah, well, basically what had happened is all the stories start with, I was on Instagram and I was like seeing what the heck was going on with the war in Ukraine. And I felt really helpless. And I was like, there's just, how can I help? Like, I'm just like, sitting on my Instagram, like I feel useless, and what can I do with my skills that can possibly like make a positive impact and like, help other creatives and other human beings on the other side of the world. And that's when I saw what Stanley was doing, because he literally, he's been a colleague and a friend. Like we're both Domestica teachers, and Stanley, I admire your work greatly, and he's got an amazing design studio, and he literally just like in 24 hours, like took action and created this amazing website to support creatives, but creatives that are in, a difficult situation. Specifically right now it's Ukraine, but eventually, it's open to all creatives that are, really struggling. And so that kind of Stan and I teamed up, and I was like, oh my God, what can I do? I need to connect you with people. We need to like get you on, connect you with Joel, connect you with all the people I know around the world, and, basically bring some visibility and bring some light to how we want to help and support our community members. So that's why we're here today.
So Stan, I'm super intrigued to hear what you're doing. And again, I'll provide context by saying the people in our community are business owners. And I was making this point to everyone when we promoted this event, saying, you know what, as business owners, I think everyone here has more influence, more power, more resources than perhaps they appreciate. So if I was to offer that as context, tell us, what is it you're doing, and what's the mission that you're currently working on?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having us. Of course, thank you for giving us this opportunity. Big thank you to that for always connecting the right people at the right moment. I guess, yes, it is relevant to all industries. I think we started with creative because that's just my wheelhouse. This is what I'm familiar with. But I also feel the fact that we as community are very siloed. We tend to have conversations amongst each other, for each other, and we rarely include other, business owners, entities that are not part of the creative community. So I think it's important to start building these bridges of transparency in order to move forward more efficiently together, right? So with that being said, as that gave you a little bit of a preface, it started as an effort to kind of find a calling to help people in dire need. But as we were doing this, I've seen a lot of those efforts happening, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful for all of those who are stepping up, in the time of need. But as we were doing this, I started thinking more and more about what is our role as creators or as creatives in the world. What are we doing, and how can we be seen more as a role of a first responder? I think a lot of, especially people who are starting out in the creative industry, don't always feel fulfilled, maybe, or at least I haven't. I always thought of myself, yeah, that's cool, but we're not really curing cancer. We're not doing all the amazing things that, that personally inspire me, for example. So I thought of it, well, am I just beating down on myself, or is this really what the community and that's what we're doing, and that's as far as we're gonna go? So started having these conversations with a lot of folks, not just in creative community, but also in business communities. How are we perceived? What is happening, and what can we do? And the more conversation I've had, the more iterations I had. Me and Dot have sat down and spoke about, well, what is the ultimate goal here? Are we really just patching up a few things here and there, or is there a greater vision for this, right?
It was.
So it kind of comes down to, helping creative community fight injustice and discrimination by just, being vulnerable, being transparent, sharing their stories. I think as even a LinkedIn community or any social community, you're oftentimes seen just as a profile picture with the list of accolades and your credentials. But what happens when a person is passed on a job opportunity? What happens when he is seen as too old, or he seems as a minority, but they qualified for this? What happens to those profile pictures and those accolades? What happens to that person? And I think that's what really starts. It starts at the point of, we need to kind of shed the light on those injustices through the lens of the people that are directly affected by it.
So, Dot, I'm curious, can I ask you,
Sure.
maybe let's even skip ahead and say, what is possible, right? Like, if we are creatives, we're plugging into, perhaps you can share what you're doing in terms of like the platform, or what's the mechanism by which we're putting some of our efforts together and coming together as a community. What's possible? Is it hiring somebody for a job that otherwise might have been passed over because of their situation? Is it sending supplies? Is it emotional support? Like, give us a sense of what's possible. What can happen?
I mean, I can tell you what I'm aiming for. Whether it's possible or not, bureaucracy has a big wheelhouse to play in this. So I would say that my personal goal with this platform, and I don't see this platform as mine. I think I started it, but it's as much as Dot's or yours or anybody else who decides to get involved. But my vision for it is to become a shift of change, and doesn't just happen in the creative industry, but in all industries. And the ultimate goal for me is to make lawmakers and policymakers uncomfortable by continuing to exercise those unfair practices, by me shedding direct light on how those policies influence creative or people that they choose to work with or choose not to work with.
That's super
Does
cool.
that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, wow, that's actually like going a step beyond just helping the individuals that are affected, right, by injustice. That's saying, let's see if we can even influence. That's what I would call raise the tide, right? We're not just helping one boat. We're going to maybe raise all boats by some means. Dot, what about you, Dot? Do you have an example of like what you're seeing, or what
I do actually?
Go for it.
By the way, I also want to get into like, because we're talking about like nosheltercreatives.com, and I want to like also get into maybe how like that naming happened, because I think it was really cool. But anyways, recently we were just all in Barcelona for Off Festival, and I didn't actually, Joel, I didn't have a chance to share this with you, but I actually, after the conference, I had arranged like a content shoot, and I basically used one of the Ukrainian photographers, from the site. And wow, like the amount of like gratitude that, because this young woman, she's literally 18 or 19. She had to leave her freaking country because, they're under siege, and she came to Barcelona to like figure out like how she's gonna, be able to hang out and like work until things get better. And I just basically contacted her like, hey, like, can you help me shoot some content, like, photos and, whatever Instagram stuff. and she was just so grateful that she was able to have, a resource to like, find other agencies that might need to hire her, for short-term or, long-term work, hopefully, so that she can just have a place to live like at this moment. So it's just Like the amount that we can impact and help is like it's enormous. Like I feel like that's just like, you know, a little thing, a little small thing that we can do, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm scrolling
So,
on the No Shelter site here. So is this the example you're giving us, that this is a platform where people can connect with resources and at least start
yeah.
somewhere and say, hey, here's a person that I can connect with and engage and take advantage of their talents, leverage their talents, and give them a job and help them make an income and so forth?
Yeah, so Stanley and his team basically put up, like, you guys magically like put up the site in like, I don't know, in record time, just to, you know, put something in motion. And it basically has a database of creative people that are available for work, that are in, you know, difficult situations. And then there's also, you know, a job board for any agency that's, you know, looking to hire.
Mhm.
And then there's resources and, you know, news articles about, you know, the current situation of what's going on in the industry from the front lines.
Yeah, this is incredible. I had visited this site maybe a few weeks ago, Dot, when you introduced me to it, but I don't know if I saw all this. Is this like a major work in progress?
This is like version, like, I don't know, Stanley, you like killed it. This is like amazing.
This was really this is version I would say 0.2, because the first one I really bootstrapped within a few hours, just deploying a Squarespace, which we got hit with like 60 different creatives immediately.
Wow.
And then we kind of converted this into more, because everything I had to do manual. So I had to go through the emails, crop their pictures, you know, make a story out of it on Instagram, post them up on the site. So it was taking tremendous amount of my time. So this is a bit of a more automated process.
Yeah.
But as we're growing, you know, I want to let the people kind of dictate what the next version should be based on the inquiries or what they want to happen.
If you don't mind, Stan, could you walk me through, let's say I run a motion design or animation company and I'm saying, hey, I'm always on the look for help. And I love the idea of supporting some of these artists. How would I engage with this resource? Walk me through it.
Yeah, you can basically go to the website, click on creatives, browse creatives.
Okay.
And just look for the, you know, on the left side, there's a filter. You can look for, if you don't find anyone specifically you're looking for, you can reach out to me and say, hey, we're looking for somebody, and my team will try to find someone who fits the criteria. But basically, I didn't want to be another, like a HR talent management company. I don't make any money from this. My goal is to really, hey, this is their portfolio link, this is their Instagram. It's up to you to take it where you want to take it. So you can literally direct it, because I don't want to be the middleman of trying to facilitate any of these conversations. Maybe down the line it will be, but you know, it's imperative for me to be not seen as a talent management, because that's not what we're doing.
Sure.
This was literally like a first responder action to kind of like, okay, these guys are really, because when we started building it out, you know, as what Dad was saying about her experience with the person in Barcelona, I was getting those emails by a dozen every day that, you know, today I'm a creative director. Yesterday I was a creative director. Today I am displaced in Hungary with my little sister, and I'm separated from my family, and I don't even know what to do. Yeah. So it was really disheartening to kind of, even at that level, like, well, what can I possibly do? So, you know, we started like reaching out and trying to build this community. I've reached out to people in Amsterdam, which is another great community, and we're trying to facilitate with them that they can take in a lot of immigrants and refugees and kind of provide them with opportunities as well.
So now I'm curious to know, let's say that this platform continues to gain traction and we are solving the immediate need of getting work and helping provide income to these people that are in these situations. You had a bigger idea, Stan.
Yeah.
Of how could this perhaps be the beginning of, I don't know if movement is the right word, but what I heard you suggesting was something that would create a certain energy or expectation that would make its way to the leaders. Of course, I hate to use the word leaders because really what we mean are politicians and bureaucrats and so forth. But tell us more about how this could perhaps gain traction over time and influence those people.
Yeah, so one of the immediate things that Dad and myself kind of brainstormed is to really, I'm a big fan of Brandon Stanton of Humans of New York. I think he's probably the last resort of a true impact change that isn't based by any selfish needs. And they're just phenomenal platform. And I think the true success of that venture was the fact that he was able to let people be vulnerable and tell their stories. And that's what it is, really. It's a storytelling platform at the end of the day, that people resonate a lot with the stories. And I think that's the idea that we want to take. Now we want to have this body of people, but I'm slowly reaching out to people and saying, like, would you mind sharing your story as a podcast or a video or even an article to kind of tell your story behind those things, and that just starts with one instance of Ukraine. But there's a lot of wars that are going on. People are affected that just aren't profitable for media to be bombarding your TVs with. So, people, the Palestine conflict, all these things that are happening that are just, the people are going through the same stuff. It's just not, it's not in the interest of media to capture those things. So there's a lot of these things that are going on. So, we want to make a list of people that are willing to go on the record and share their stories. And by amplifying those stories, by sharing those stories, by even shedding the light on those stories, potentially gaining enough traction where it will be difficult to ignore all these unfair practices that are happening, right? Thus beginning to be the catalyst of change that I'm hoping for. It's going to happen.
Well, I'm thinking of when I did the podcast with Oleg, which that connection came to me through Lydia, who's in our community. She's from Moldova. And in fact, here, I'll share this episode in case anyone wants to hear it. For me, it was incredibly raw because I had a certain expectation of, yes, I'm going to hear this person's story, but there's something about just the reality of it that doesn't come through in the news. It doesn't come through in the media. And then when you're talking with a real human and he says something like, a bit like what you said earlier, Stan, yesterday I was a creative director and then everything changed. And now he says it, I am now focused on killing as many Russians as I can. That's all I'm obsessed with every single day, every single moment. And I'm a very liberal, progressive minded person. And you just, the reality of that inspires you to be like, holy shit, I can't just sit here and say, well, hopefully my country, my government, my something will get involved. There's so many stories that need to be told, and maybe somehow we can each play a little part and help the collective people in these countries that are connected to these decision makers and politicians and so forth start to change the tide. I don't know.
And that's the thing, is that you don't think of those things until they hit you, and that it completely shifts everything. But why wait for that to happen to you personally? Because there's so many silent of these assaults happening even in our own land, in our own communities. We don't talk about it, but it happens go on LinkedIn, go on any of those social groups on Facebook. I'm part of the NYC advertisement group. And there's always a flight of, I'm too old, I didn't get hired, what is this ageism? But those are all part of like the injustice and wars that we personally fighting, just to survive at this point.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. But you can either choose to kind of, it's not going to happen to me, but just like any disease, just like an accident, it can. And we see that in 2022, how really fragile we really are. We don't think of those things.
Yeah, it blows me away when I hear stories of Russians living in Ukraine calling back to Russia, speaking to their families in Russia, and the families in Russia are saying, no, that can't be happening. No, that's not possible, right? You realize the disinformation, the disconnectedness is insane, that one family member is telling another family member, this is what's happening, and they don't believe them. Hey, Dot, I'm curious because you're a master promoter. So it's one thing to say, hey, business owners, we can use a resource like this. We can come together and we can help individuals. What does it look like for business owners to actually spread the word about this effort, about this mission, right? What would you encourage anyone that is hearing this in terms of, hey, sure, hire artists through this resource and so forth, but also spread the word, create more momentum, get the message out. What's your
I think that's what our goal is right now, is like getting, awareness that business owners are able to, post, jobs to the platform, but also to bring awareness that like, hey, this is a great platform. If you're creative and you're, displaced creative and you're looking for work, this is where, you can have resources and find jobs. And if anyone here like has an agency, or you're looking for a designer or anybody in creative space, like definitely check out the resources available. And word of mouth travels the fastest. So if you know of any Ukrainians or anyone that could be benefited by being on the site, like definitely let them know. Like I basically have been just passing the link to friends and friends of friends, and obviously posting it on Instagram stories, which I need to do more of. So yeah, if you can just pass the link along and let your friends know, that's like amazing.
Well, I'm thinking too of the owners of studios and production companies, right? They tend to have a lot of followers that are, sure, they're clients, but they have a lot of artists and teammates and colleagues and freelancers that, right, we could say, hey, I'm sharing this so that you can take part in this resource, but hey, also just spread the word and let's see if we can get this out there to a much larger audience. Stan, do you have any recommendations on that too?
Yeah, as that said, I think our biggest plight is really just getting the word out there, just to let people know that we exist. That's the biggest fight right now for us is to. So my goal is to really climb up the chain as fast as possible, to have a wider platform to speak about those things. I went to Paris to Station F to kind of set up an event. I'm working with many wonderful organizations in Europe to potentially have these events happening towards the end of the year, or we can address those things. But in the meantime, it's really like a one-on-one case. You have to reach out, you have to make those things, because once it becomes stagnant, where it's like, yeah, we're all there, but we're really not getting anything out of it, you lose the momentum. And even now already, as I'm shifting and trying to kind of make it more of a worldwide embodiment, it's hitting some low points, but it's to be expected, of course. This was really constructed rather quickly with really no long-term thought, but as we're now like kind of leveling in, it's okay, so what is the big steps that we should be taking, and what are the small steps that we should be taking? And those small steps are, of course, really just pass the word along and do whatever you can. And you have to keep in mind that to you or any agency owner or business owner, it's just, hey, I need a banner or I need a video done. But to people who need it, and especially don't even have accesses to their banking systems, like that's a do or die situation, right? So even a small project will probably feed them for a week at least, or whatever the case may be. So, and especially now that in 2022, the availability of technology and how we're getting paid is there. You know what I mean? I'm afraid that people just often, if it's not convenient and I have to take that extra step, I won't. Everything looks cool on paper in the moment, of course, because I feel like it's part of the shame program. Like, oh yeah, I'm guilty of that. But it's like sending thoughts and prayers. The thoughts and prayers are gone as soon as you swipe, right?
Right. Dot, were you about to chime in?
I just wanted to say, like, we're all here, part of like RevThink community, but part of the greater like creative community. Like, we are basically here because we want to support each other. And that's why I joined the project to help spread the word about this. Because I mean, just imagine if you were in this situation, like, it's really not something it's really scary to think about. So whatever we can do to support our creative like brothers and sisters, like sign me up. Where do I have to go speak? Who do I have to send this to? If you can connect us with people that might be in PR or that are journalists, like whatever we need to do to get the word out, like please let us know. Of course, we'd love to make more social media content. We want to tell the stories of these creatives. So anybody that wants to volunteer, like definitely hit Stanley and I up. Like we're doing this for,
Yeah, I was just about to ask that question, because as you were talking, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I know a great publicist that would be happy to plug into this. So thank you for that thought. I got to plug her in. So that's the other thought, right? Is what I heard you saying, Dot, was, hey, if you want to actually get involved behind the scenes with me and Stanley, we need help. We need volunteers. We need your resources to even improve this platform and so forth.
Yeah, 100%. I think the success of it will really rely. I can put the brightest minds. I can put all of them on salary. It's not going to be as impactful as someone who really wants to be the catalyst of change. Because you can't really put a price on that. And I think I've been fortunate enough to have somebody like that join us on this effort. It makes my life easier, and it's fun to work together on things that you care about. And also another cool way of maybe supporting this cause is really just, create something, a piece that, if you want to share your personal story of why you choose to do certain things or how certain events have affected you, and you want to tell your story, feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we'll definitely make that happen so we can amplify your message. We can shed some light on your, situation to make it better, hopefully.
Yeah, I can tell you this. I had a client who did just that. They got involved in the elections in the state of Georgia here, in the States last fall, and created content for the cause that they really believed in. And guess what? When I was there in Savannah, I'm like, wow, I was seeing that content that this studio donated to this cause. And I'm just telling you that election came down to, a fraction of a percent in the difference. So it's pretty interesting to think about, what could you as a studio, what's the passion project, right? We normally are always saying, well, let's create some amazing content that really represents our values or our passion and that sort of thing. So Stanley, I think that's a pretty cool gauntlet to throw down and say, here's a great opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we as creatives, especially the new founded agency owners, we think of creative process usually as an A to B facilitation between myself and a client. The client is paying me in exchange for my ideas and my technical acumen of delivery. But as creatives, you can take a step back and think even grander. You as creatives can potentially facilitate the change in politics, in how police is being operating right now, how financial sector is operating, how healthcare is, all of the things in the word creatives, we create these opportunities, we create these new ways of looking at the same problems and trying to figure out how can we solve those things. And I think we need to kind of constantly remind ourselves of that's a superpower. Creativity and imagination is something that, very hard to teach, but if you have it, and you're lucky, and you should utilize it for good.
Well, especially, and I know this is I'm going to speak in your love language here, right? Is if we're taking that superpower that we have, that you mentioned, Stan, and we're mixing it with this thing called community, right? Of us as a collective community of creatives, like we can do some amazing things, right? This is that thing we always say in our community, which is the best way to deal with the future is to create it. Like we are creators.
Right.
What can we go make? What can we go do that's going to move the world an inch forward as opposed to backwards?
Right. And it's sometimes really as simple as starting with just asking a question. What might we do? How might we change those? And that's it. I think that's the premise of a design sprint, of taking these troublesome ideas or problems and turning them into opportunities. And really, like, I've noticed that even in my personal work, it really just reframing of your mind and trying to see an opportunity versus a dead end problem. It creates wonders, you know, on personal level as well as the, of course, professional and global level.
Mhm.
Well, I know we're at the 30-minute mark, so we should wrap up here and respect people's time. Dot, do you have a final thought or encouragement for us to sign us off?
I just literally had, an idea that Stanley, like we could do to get these creative studios or artists involved is like, maybe it sounds like, I don't know, I'm thinking out loud, like we could do some sort of like no shelter poster contest, just so we can get influencers and stuff to be posting artwork that has like the website and the hashtag, and that way it can spread the word like in an artistic way, and it can link to the site, and help other people that need to hear about it know about it. So
yeah, that's a dope idea. I like it. Yeah, I think yeah, just
this is a
don't
brainstorming session now.
Right.
right.
Well, look,
I don't want people to see it as a contest for something else. You know, this isn't, as
Yeah.
in the beginning, this isn't mine or Dot's or yours. This is all ours.
Yeah, so we did it. So I've done something like that with Wix, like where they during COVID, actually, they had like a poster contest, for bored creatives at home that, it was like called Stay Sane, Stay Safe. It was like a campaign. And we had hundreds of people submit posters so that they could get featured in the Wix Instagram. So we could do something similar. Maybe we can collaborate with another media channel and make it a collab so we can get the viewership. But yeah, anyone that wants to get involved, like, let's have some fun and help other
But
creators.
even thought about, remember we spoke about doing some apparel designs that kind of could help fuel us to move this forward. So I started connecting those things. So yeah, there's a lot. So ideas are always open. If you hear something or if you think of something, don't be a stranger, don't be shy, reach out, and of course we can start the conversations immediately.
Well, Stan, I'm waiting for my no shelter snapback hat. I will gladly wear that and promote that everywhere and anywhere.
Wait, Joel, you got a new hat?
I did. I lost my two hats in Seville.
No, but did you get it back? Weren't they going to mail it to you?
No, this is Kingdom of Something. They gave me one of their hats, which is appropriate because this is their shop and I'm promoting them today. So.
But weren't you going to get in Barcelona, they're going to ship you the one you lost in the hotel? That never happened?
You know how it is. So complicated.
Oh, man.
I know. I'll live. It's just a hat. All right. Well, look, I'm hearing this. I'm hearing like maybe as you two move forward with No Shelter, that there's probably some sort of a routine that you might establish called, hey, we're going to do, I don't know, some sort of a meetup or gathering every couple of weeks or once a month or something. And maybe people from our community can jump into that and contribute to the brainstorm, to the, hey, I can offer this, I can do that. So please keep us posted, right? Like, please, Dot, I know you're inside of our community, and Stanley, you're of course welcome there as well. So let's just please keep us posted and be sharing ways, ideas, like push us, right?
Absolutely.
Be that force for like inviting us into the thing that we know we should be doing. Like, it's not just talk, it's translating it into doing. So we ask you to hold us accountable and you take advantage of us. How about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, so if everyone that enjoyed the session, please go share the link noshelter.design on your social medias, because that's the place to be.
Yeah, and follow us at No Shelter Creatives on Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, that's easy. I'm going to do that right now, and I'll be posting in the community. We'll re-upload this replay so that we'll get everyone else in the community aware, and then we'll stay in touch with the two of you and the team at No Shelter. And holy cow, my hat is totally off to you guys for what you're doing, and thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us all into it so we can be part of this.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Joel, for having us, giving us an opportunity and a stage to speak.
You bet. Much love. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the briefing this week, and for hanging in there with me despite my tardiness, and we will see you all next week for another update, and we'll keep you guys posted on what Dot and Stanley and the No Shelter team are up to. So bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.